Well, hey everyone, this is Rich from NGM Matters, and I'm so thankful you are here with us during this Monday here. It's our second episode of NGM Features. I featured, first of all, my own two sons. Now I get to feature someone I've known for a really long time. Matter of fact, I'm probably safe in saying I've known him longer than most anybody else because I've known this man all of his life. This is my brother, Dathan Brown, and I am the older, he's the better looking. So Dathan has got this really, really big heart for student ministry. He's got his youth degree back in his undergrad and even a graduate level in youth ministries, and served as a student pastor for how many years, Dathan, altogether?
Evangelical Free Church of Fullerton for about 15 years, plus maybe another 5 years or so.
Right. So you've got about 20 in the local church. God reroutes you, very similar to what's happened with me of more recent time, kind of reroutes you. Now you're in camping ministry. You're still in youth ministry. And you told me in the past, isn't about 80 to 85% of all of your campers, from little ones to right through adults, are still pretty much in that youth, that age bracket? What's the average percentage?
Yeah, we minister at Hume Lake Christian Camps. We minister to all ages.
It's iced tea, by the way.
But ever since, what's that?
It's ice. It's a red Solo cup, but it's iced tea.
There you go.
Just saying.
We minister to all ages at Hume, but way back in 1946, the board made a special emphasis to focus on youth. So in our dominant seasons of summer and winter camp, and really throughout the year with Outdoor Ed, we have children, students here in California and in other locations as well around the globe.
Cool. So what year did you start as executive director at Hume?
It was 2013, May of 2013. So wow. I've been here now 7 years.
Wow. Now, I know this and you know this, but our audience won't have a clue. The first time you stepped, the year-wise, the first time you stepped on the grounds of Hume Lake Christian Camps up there in California, because there's many Hume Lakes now as far as camps. What year? And give us the backstory.
Yeah, I was a student at Liberty University, and I tried to use my summers to do ministry. And I was with Bob and Brenda Bonheim in Hawaii, in Maui, doing ministry. I thought that'd be a great spot. And in fact, it was, not just because it was beautiful, but because the needs are so huge. And there was a gal on the team from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and she told me about a place called Hume. And I had never heard of it, and I had never seen any pictures of it. But I called sight unseen to the HR director at the time, and eventually I ended up coming to Hume in 1988. And I have been back to Hume either as vacationing, a youth pastor bringing students, speaking, and now on staff just about every year since 1988, except for a couple of years.
I remember this was y'all listening and watching this. You got to understand, ministry in the 80s is so different. And matter of fact, one reason is you guys we all have these now, right? And back then we didn't. So you would call us occasionally. This was 1980s. You would call mom or dad maybe once a week, every other week. And then mom would call me and tell me updates on Dathan summer. I mean, this was going back to Take On Me, the 80s, baby. And you had such a fun and cool time. You went from actually working grounds, security. And so I think that's cool. And we talk in this segment, we're talking with you. And by the way, viewers, we got Dathan for 3 segments. This first one is on why camp ministry. But sometimes I think people can think, oh, I just want the front seat. I want to be the bus driver on the bus of whatever organization. Not true. You had to really take us through some of the different roles you had done. Yes, and you eventually became a speaker there. But even as an even as a younger adult, what were some of the areas that you actually worked in?
Yeah, my first job at Hume was summer counseling staff. So that was a spot where if a church didn't have enough counselors, then you'd jump in and fill in at the high school camp or at the junior high camp or children's camp. And you could only back then do that one time because that was kind of the job that a lot of college students wanted. So the second year, I ended up working security, which at Hume, the crime rate's pretty low. And so a lot of it was kind of like greeting guests and kind of help coordinate some of the medical emergencies and stuff. We have our own fire department at Hume. So it's getting the right people in the right place at the right time And I did that 2 or 3 years, and then just started coming back up to Hume, vacationing, volunteering, and a number of other things. So I stayed connected over all these years, which I think is fun.
And then you met the love of your life there in Southern Cal. And your wedding there in Fullerton, this was 1995, I believe, 96?
No, that it was actually May 25th, 1996. You're right.
I remember because Ryan, my son, was only a few months old at the time when we were living in Seattle at that point. And you even actually had some of your honeymoon even at Hume. You kind of, Dathan, you got to give the story on this. The honeymoon tour. You had the t-shirt.
Well, we got married in Fullerton, and then we decided I was in between jobs, about ready to become the junior high pastor at the time at EV Free Fullerton. And so we had a certain amount of times, and we had a lot of guests that came out to California. So Sherry and I went to Dana Point for a couple of days, and then we went up to Hume. A bunch of people gathered up at Hume. And then after that, Sherry and I had a chance to go to Hawaii and
so
do a more traditional
Dana
honeymoon.
and I didn't crash. We didn't crash your honeymoon. We were invited for part of it because you actually had the Dathan and Sherry honeymoon tour shirts.
Yeah, because it didn't end in Hawaii
cool.
either. We went back to California, then to New York, where we're originally from, and so on and so forth. So a friend of mine ended up making almost like a concert tour T-shirt.
Yeah, it was great.
And it was good fun.
It was great. And that was neat. And me as your brother watching the Lord use you all these years, first of all, I'm your biggest fan. I mean that. And I know I'm only 5'8", but I'm still your biggest fan. But anyway, so just watching the Lord bring you to now this position. And I knew that the team there at Hume were just going to love you. And when you were hired in by the board to come in that role, there was just this instant connection. I had some connection with some people I knew because of you, who were then students of mine in my classes here on the East Coast. And just hearing their vibe or their take on, Dathan, anytime I mentioned Dathan was the executive director, I mean, even of recent times, people say, oh, that's your brother? He's amazing. I mean, they love you. And your love for Jesus and your humility just screams out. And I know something I'm a big fan of is you guys at Hume aren't just all about Hume. And that's something I really, really want to say I applaud, is you want every youth camp to win. You want them all to win. And I just love that. But the big question we have right now is, why camp ministry? Give me some history of camp, not just Hume itself, sure, but camping as we now know it, 21st century, end of 20th century. Why would a student pastor want to partner with or go to a summer camp?
Well, I think there are a lot of summer camps out there, right? And just generic summer camps. I mean, why not get away from the city and go out into the country and breathe fresh air and to be able to paddle a canoe and do all sorts of fun things. At Hume, we have BMX bikes that go off the end of a dock and a ramp and do flips into the lake. Why not have all that fun? But I think particularly a Christian camp, and there's hundreds of great ones out there. Ones like Hume, our desire is to partner with local churches to shine bright the gospel of Jesus Christ. So at Hume, I can speak from that context, and really a lot of other Christian camps. We want to take a student and motivate them to get up off the couch, put down the cell phone for a moment, breathe some fresh air, be in the context of authentic relationships, have some incredible fun, and meet Jesus in a profound and life-transformative way. And that's what we do at Hume, and that's why we run camps in beautiful spots in the country, such as we're right down the road from the world's largest tree. The giant sequoia trees are just down the road from us here at our Hume Lake property. Then we run camp in San Diego, overlooking the Pacific Ocean. We rent out a college campus there, Point Loma, Nazarene University, and we run camps in the islands on the North Shore of Oahu. And we rent facilities there also in Kauai. And now we have a camp, praise God, in the northeastern United States. Mm-hmm. Over 50 million people in that part of the country need Jesus. And we're in the Berkshire Mountain region in Western Massachusetts, and that's fun. And then we do some Hume International stuff in Thailand and Papua New Guinea and other places around the world.
That's cool. So when someone were to say, well, camp ministry, it's not long-term, it doesn't really work, it's just a bunch of hype and a lot of fun, um, there's not a lot of return on the investment, X amount of money to go to camp. What do you say to that?
Well, I think our logo is a reminder to me. It's kind of like going out to a lake at 5, 6 in the morning, and the water is like glass. Picking up a rock and throwing it in to the water. There's a point of impact that doesn't end with that moment in time. There's radiating out from that point of impact are ripples that go from year after year after year. I a couple of years ago, Luis Palau was speaking in Fresno, and his son came up to camp. Actually, Luis did too. He some of his early days were spent at Hume, and
Wow.
Luis said his son said, "This is the very room that I used to crawl under the pews after my dad was done speaking." Or I remember hearing story that when Francis Chan was 14 or 15, he had put his faith in Jesus right there in the Ponderosa High School chapel. You know,
Wow.
not all, well, frankly, most of our guests will never end up being famous. But a point in time when you remove distractions and you clearly present the gospel and you do it in conjunction and partnership with a local church, it just maybe God doesn't speak louder at camp, but we often listen better at
Yes,
camp
that's the key.
because we put away a lot of the distractions and we focus on what's eternal. And it's amazing. Hundreds of students each summer put their faith in Jesus Christ, not just at Hume, but at camps around the country and really around the world.
Right. A couple of things I'm really a big fan of what your the way that you guys lay it out, your strategy, is that you've already said it, but you really partner with a local church. To kind of like throw this out toward the end of this first segment is you guys have at Hume, you guys have such a strong commitment to the local church that, like me as a student pastor bringing our team, you actually, from what you told me, want our team to integrate and stay and be part of that experience. And when I visited you guys a few summers ago, I watched it. Matter of fact, I met a Liberty student my age who was a student pastor on the West Coast at that time. And we connected right away because your camp was filled, I saw, with student pastors and the volunteers. Can you give us a little bit of that? Because we know the power of we all go home. So camp goes home with us. Go clean it up. I probably messed it up. Clean it up.
Yeah, we partner with local churches to shine bright the gospel of Jesus. We will absolutely welcome an individual camper, but our main offense is to partner with churches. So whether they bring 20 students or 300 students, they, in addition to bringing students, bring the counselors with them. Those counselors that may already have a relationship with students that are trained by the church, and then we do additional training. Now we still have 500 or 600 summer staff along with our full-time staff to do everything from set up volleyball nets to create program to launch themes, drama, theater, recreation, all of that stuff. But if a student puts their faith in Jesus at a Hume camp, there's a really good chance that that very next Sunday they'll be sitting in church with the very person that led them to Christ. And that's the main reason why we partner with churches in that way, so that the discipleship network is built right in, and it works beautifully most of the time.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. I think something I tried to hit so much in my senior class when teaching in the classroom, when we got to the section or the component on camp ministry, I called it, we took one whole section on, or one whole lecture or two on, from the campfire to the campus. Because students, I really think, have a very sincere heart, and the Lord really touches them. And then sometimes we as adults see, well, they don't follow through well. Well, then what can we do to create the culture to make sure in the local church they're following through well? As I think their hearts are very sincere. And kind of put a bow on this section right here. From my perspective, watching it, when someone kind of like, pushes back on camp or the camp experience, or I go, well, you know what? Let's look at Peter, James, and John. The Mount of Transfiguration, dude, that to me is That is the theology of camp ministry, that Jesus took the 3 up a hill. He got them away, even from the other 9, to be honest. He took them away, got them from all the distractions. They had the most crazy encounter with Jehovah God that 2 of the 3 actually wrote on many years toward the end of their life, Peter and John. They referred back to their moment there on the Mount of Transfiguration. And we can all realize that definitely Peter had some struggles with his own faith walk the next few months of denying Christ. But you could never deny the reality, or he could never deny the reality of that experience that he had with Jehovah. This is my son, listen only to him. To me, Dathan, that is a great theology of camp ministry, that Jesus, if Jesus was understanding we must take people away to capture their entire attention, then I'm a big cheerleader of camp. And I thank you for this time. Anything else you want to throw on that? Or are you good for the next
Just
session?
one last thing. I talked to a youth pastor last week, and he said now a bunch of his students, it's not like they're coming to church every single week. He said a number of his students go to church once a month. So I think another major factor of camp is that we can do in 1 week, in terms of teaching a series or being life on life, that might take the better part of a year in some settings where maybe if somebody comes once a month. And so it's amazing what God does in places where it's intentionally focused on the gospel, in safe, authentic relationships. You put down some of the distractions and you point people to Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
Lives are not changed for a week. They're changed for an eternity. Yeah. And if you go and you talk to pastors all around the country, many of them put their faith in Jesus at a camp. Big camps, small camps, doesn't matter as long as they preach Jesus.
Truth. We could go on about this all day. When I got to that section in my senior class on programming and I hit the camping component, I used to ask them, how many of you made a major decision for Christ, whether your own journey started with Jesus at camp, or I'm going to get extremely serious, like calling? Out of 10, and there was more than 10 in class, but I'm just saying, out of every 10, 8 out of every 10, every semester, hand goes up, significant tent stake went down at camp. And many of them said, I got saved at camp. Or many of them said, I got extremely serious about my own sense of calling. Dathan, you and I both know our own father, that's his story from 1950s at Word of Life camps in Scroon Lake, New York. So yeah, I'm a big fan of camps. I used to tell our students, save your best series for camp, because you have them every session. Whereas we know now they're there weeks 1, 3, and 5, maybe. So it's even like that is the most intense time, bad camping joke, I know, most intense time that you can have with your students. So Dathan, I'm so excited. Let's bring the next sections, the next sessions we're going to be offering the next 2 weeks. We're going to be looking next week at dealing with how to work through and navigate through some of the more difficult times in camping ministry, and then leading through crisis. So God bless you guys. Have a great week. Next Gen Matters. Check out our Facebook here, and also be checking out our website. God bless you guys.